Zegler saying, "Oh, that 1937 movie, that's just, oh, it's tacky, it's weird, it's, oh."
But this truly is the worst casting, maybe, in the history of the film industry. Has there been a film with worse casting than this? And I don't just mean the Snow White actress. Obviously, she's terrible, but
I think it's fair to say that no one can stand the star of this movie.
One of the reasons why Rachel Zegler sticks around is she's got a beautiful voice and she has some talent. So I think that certainly helps her because she's a PR nightmare. I don't know how anyone would...
Mostly known at this point by the general public is the fact that Disney is in full-on damage control mode.
I came back, the losses were around $4 billion.
Behind the scenes mayhem. I expected a Frankenstein's monster were seen to be stitched together. I think a lot of these live action updates are really hard to watch. They've really done so much stepping on rakes over the last few months with this project where the box office is just not going to recover.
Oh, man.
Hello, Disney. You're going to have to redo your film again because this woman is a pig and you fired Gina Carano for far less than this nonsense.
Disney thought they had a guaranteed hit. Instead, they got one of the biggest disasters in Hollywood history. A $290 million train wreck that audiences either ignored or openly mocked. And leading the charge, Rachel Zegler, who somehow managed to trash her own movie before it even hit theaters. Genius move, right? From backpedaling faster than an Olympic sprinter to a box office flop so big it made The Flash look like Avatar. This is the story of how Snow White went from Disney's next big thing to a legendary cautionary tale. This one's got everything: studio meltdowns, PR disasters, internet memes, and one of the worst marketing strategies in recent memory. So grab your popcorn, because we're about to break down exactly how Disney managed to butcher one of its most iconic classics. And trust me, this story is even messier than the CGI dwarfs. The Disney dream turned nightmare. To understand the full scale of this disaster, we need to go back to the very beginning. Disney has been on a mission to remake its animated classics into live-action blockbusters for years. Some have been massive hits: Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, while others, well, let's just say The Lion King 2019 made $1 billion, but audiences were still complaining about the lack of emotion in its pictorialistic CGI. But Snow White, this wasn't just any movie. It was the movie that built Disney, the original animated feature. The film that turned Walt Disney's vision into a global empire. It's practically sacred in animation history. So when Disney announced they were doing a live-action remake, fans were skeptical but hopeful. After all, if any movie deserved the remake treatment, it was this one. And when Rachel Zegler was cast as the lead, it made sense. She had already proven herself in West Side Story, a role that won her a Golden Globe and put her on the industry's radar as a promising young talent. With her incredible voice and undeniable charisma, she seemed like the perfect choice to bring the iconic princess to life. But then, the PR campaign started, and everything went downhill fast. The PR tour from hell: How to Annoy Your Fanbase 101. If you're starring in a major Disney remake, rule number 1 is simple: act like you love the original movie. Even if you secretly don't, you fake it for the sake of ticket sales. Zegler, she did the exact opposite. In an interview that would soon go viral for all the wrong reasons, she described the 1937 Snow White as weird and outdated.
You've told me before that your version of Snow White is different and it's more of a 2022 version of Snow White. What did you mean by that?
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true. And so it's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
But she didn't stop there. She went on to say that her version of the film was a modern retelling where Snow White wasn't saved by the prince and wasn't interested in love at all. Instead, she was focused on being a leader. Now, on paper, that might not sound like a huge deal. But when you're remaking a beloved classic, dismissing the entire point of the original story is not the best way to win over fans. And then, she took it a step further, mocking the prince's role in the original movie, saying he was a little weird for kissing Snow White while she was asleep. Cue instant backlash. Longtime Disney fans felt like the actress playing Snow White was outright insulting the story they grew up loving. Many pointed out that the entire premise of Snow White was a fairy tale, not a courtroom drama. And if Zegler disliked the core themes of the story so much, why did she even take the role in the first place? Then came the backpedaling, and oh boy, was it painful. After weeks of criticism, Zegler suddenly changed her tune. She started claiming she loved the original film and had been misunderstood. But by then, the damage was already done. The internet doesn't forget, and it definitely doesn't forgive that easily. The internet's savage roast session, Snow White becomes meme fuel. Social media erupted. Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube were flooded with memes dragging Zegler's comments. The most common sentiment: imagine being cast as Snow White and then hating Snow White. And just when you thought things couldn't get worse, enter the Seven Dwarfs controversy. In leaked set photos, fans noticed something strange. The Seven Dwarfs weren't dwarfs. They were a mix of different-sized people, and some were even CGI creatures. This wasn't just a small artistic choice, it completely changed one of the most iconic elements of the story. Peter Dinklage, the Game of Thrones star and the most well-known little person actor in Hollywood, even called out Disney for what he saw as hypocrisy. He criticized them for trying to be progressive, but in a way that actually erased opportunities for little people actors. At this point, it wasn't just Disney fans who were frustrated, it was everyone. And yet, despite all the warning signs, Disney pushed forward, assuming controversy would translate into ticket sales. Spoiler alert, it didn't. The box office disaster. How to lose $242 million. When Snow White finally made its way to theaters, the results were nothing short of catastrophic. The numbers rolled in, and it became immediately clear this wasn't just a flop, it was an unmitigated disaster. Disney, a studio known for turning animated classics into billion-dollar live-action spectacles, had just suffered one of the biggest financial disappointments in its history.
I came back, the losses were around $4 billion a year.
Well, I know this point has been made, but this truly is the worst casting maybe in the history of the film industry.
The movie opened to a dismal $43 million domestically, a figure that would be unimpressive for any big-budget blockbuster. But for a movie with a budget that reportedly soared to nearly $290 million due to reshoots and delays, it was disastrous. Internationally, things didn't improve much. The film managed to scrape together $44 million overseas, bringing the total global box office haul to $87.3 million. And here's where the real pain: Megyn studios don't just need to make back their budget. They need to earn roughly double to break even after factoring in marketing and distribution costs.
I say, if I'm going to stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed on.
That meant Snow White would have needed to gross at least $600 million worldwide to be considered a success. Instead, it didn't even come close. But the real problem wasn't just the numbers, it was the reaction. Many Disney misfires at least generate some level of curiosity. Even the Marvels, which also flopped, had audiences debating whether the MCU was declining, keeping the conversation alive. But Snow White, it didn't even inspire hate watching. Instead of people angrily buying tickets just to see the train wreck firsthand, audiences simply didn't care. That's the worst possible outcome for any movie indifference. No passionate debates, no viral discussions, just the sound of crickets in half-empty theaters. Even streaming couldn't save it. Disney Plus saw a slight uptick in views when Snow White eventually dropped, but it was far from the splashy reception that past Disney remakes had received. Compare that to Aladdin, which performed decently in theaters and later found huge success on streaming. Or Beauty and the Beast, which became an instant cultural moment, with its soundtrack dominating playlists and merchandise flying off the shelves. For Snow White, there was none of that. Merchandise collected dust. Tie-in products, from dolls to backpacks, were quietly removed from shelves as retailers realized no one wanted them. Disney, usually the king of branding and synergy, was forced to accept that their latest live-action remake had completely failed to resonate. And at the center of it all, Rachel Zegler, whose comments and PR missteps had turned what could have been an easy marketing campaign into an uphill battle. Rachel Zegler's future, can she recover? So, where does Rachel Zegler go from here? Because let's be real, Hollywood loves a comeback story. But not every actor gets one. Right now, her situation is complicated. Zegler isn't some unknown newcomer. She was handpicked by Steven Spielberg for West Side Story, an opportunity that should have skyrocketed her to Hollywood's A-list. And for a moment, it seemed like that was exactly what would happen. She had the talent, the industry backing, and a shot at becoming Disney's next big star. But then Snow White happened, and suddenly, that promising future didn't look so secure. The backlash from her interviews wasn't just a minor controversy, it fundamentally changed how audiences perceived her. Before, she was an up-and-coming star with massive potential. After the PR disaster, she became a symbol of Hollywood's growing disconnect with audiences. Instead of embracing the role that could have defined her career, she seemed to actively distance herself from it, and in doing so, alienated fans before the movie even hit theaters. And here's the problem with that: Hollywood relies on audience goodwill. Actresses like Emma Watson, Beauty and the Beast, and Lily James, Cinderella succeeded because they knew how to balance modernizing a character without disrespecting its legacy. They embraced their roles, paid homage to the originals, and won over both old and new audiences. Zegler, on the other hand, found herself in a situation where she wasn't just facing criticism from Disney fans, she was now on Hollywood's radar as someone who might be difficult to market in future projects. That's a dangerous reputation to have in an industry that runs on image and public perception. And it's not just audiences she has to worry about, it's studios. Major Hollywood players take note when an actor becomes more of a liability than an asset. Casting decisions aren't just about talent, they're about bankability. Studios need stars who can carry a film, sell tickets, and generate positive buzz. Right now, Zegler's name isn't doing any of those things. That doesn't mean her career is over, but it does mean she have to work a lot harder to rebuild her image. One possible path: taking a break from high-profile roles and focusing on indie films. Many actors have successfully rebranded themselves by stepping away from blockbusters and proving their acting chops in smaller, critically acclaimed projects. If Zegler delivers a standout performance in a gritty drama or an unexpected genre film, she could remind Hollywood why she was considered a rising star in the first place. Another strategy: a well-executed apology tour. Hollywood thrives on redemption arcs, and if she can publicly acknowledge her missteps in a way that feels genuine without sounding defensive, she could regain goodwill. The key is sincerity. Audiences can smell a PR stunt from a mile away, so any attempt at damage control needs to feel real. But the biggest question: will Hollywood even give her that chance? Because let's be honest, there are plenty of talented actresses out there, and Hollywood has a short memory when it comes to past it girls. For every Jennifer Lawrence who successfully navigates controversy, there's a Megan Fox who gets sidelined for years. Zegler's fate will depend on how well she plays the game from here on out. For now, she's in a precarious position. She still has upcoming projects. The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes gave her a bit of a lifeline. But unless she manages to win back audiences, her long-term career in blockbuster filmmaking is uncertain. The real test: her next big film. If she lands another leading role in a major studio project and it succeeds, she could prove that Snow White was just a misstep. If not, well, Hollywood might just decide to move on without her. Either way, the damage from Snow White is undeniable. What was supposed to be her defining moment turned into a cautionary tale, a reminder that in Hollywood, how you sell a movie is just as important as how you star in it. So, can Rachel Zegler recover? Maybe. But one thing's for sure: her next move will determine everything. So, what's the lesson here? First, respect the fanbase. If you're remaking a classic, don't alienate the people who love it. Second, stop trying to fix things that weren't broken. Not every classic film needs a modernized, subversive twist. And finally, maybe, just maybe, actors should think before they speak. So, what do you think? Could Snow White have been saved, or was this disaster inevitable? Drop a comment, hit that like button, and subscribe for more no-holds-barred breakdowns of Hollywood's biggest train wrecks. Until next time, stay tuned, stay safe, and stay far away from box office flops.